when Carrie and I first got married, we moved into a new house, and we were, blended family. So Carrie's 2 kids moved in. We all were moving in together for the first time, and we were moving into the Houston Arts District, otherwise known as First Ward, which is a transitional neighborhood. So this was probably 4.5 years ago now. So
5, longer than that, I forget.
That's like 4.5 years ago. So 4.5 years ago, just gotten married. We're all moving in together. Carrie's parents are in town to help us move the furniture. They live out in the country.
Yes.
And we'd gone over to the old place to get some furniture and bring a load over. And when we got back, I walk in the house, and there are these 2 local drug users, druggies.
Yeah, for the lack of
I'm
a better
not even
term.
sure that they have a home. I don't know.
Right.
But they were in there that he had hired, and they were quite enthusiastic.
Great
attitude. They were very excited to be in our house. In fact, the day one of the girls' name was Jane.
Yeah.
And the day that we moved out, I remember she happened to be riding her bike in front of the house, and by that point we'd become pretty friendly. And she was just like, "Girl, you have so much stuff." It took me a while to forgive my father-in-law at that point. We had a very heated discussion because, of course, I was afraid they were casing the house and, amongst other things. Long story short, we lived on probably the worst street in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Brand new home, and sometimes that's the price that you pay, right, for living in a new house in these neighborhoods that are in transition. And, the funny thing is that as neighbors, which I'm pretty sure we were living across the street from drug dealers, and there were 3 or 4 houses, and they were all kind of connected to each other.
If you can call them houses, it was
like shanty town.
Yeah.
Pretty sure they were drug dealers. I mean, there was all kinds of things that we would see going on, but we felt very safe living there. In fact, one morning we went out. Yeah, one morning we went out, and our daughter had dropped her driver's license, and one of the neighbors showed up across the street with her license in hand. It was basically chastising us, like, you need to be more careful.
Hey, this is not a nice neighborhood,
and you need to be more careful.
And he's like, and we noticed she's been leaving her laptop in her car at night, and she shouldn't be doing that in this neighborhood. She needs to be sure and take it in.
So we had to repent because these people could not have been more kind to us the entire 2.5 years that we lived there. And we never had anything happen. Any
trouble.
Now, I will say that after we left, after we'd moved out, the grill that had been back there the whole time got stolen mysteriously. But the house was vacant at that point. And so, anyway, long story short is there's going to be good and there's going to be bad in any neighborhood that you live in. The Houston Arts District, historically known as the First Ward, is definitely a transitional neighborhood. It's come a long way since we were there 4.5 years ago. We absolutely loved living there.
Yeah.
And, we've realized that if you Google...
Oh, yeah. You go to any kind of Google search or YouTube search, and there's nothing but negative press. But we loved it, and we're going to take the time during this video to tell you all the great and wonderful things about this neighborhood.
So we're keeping it real as always, and we're going to show you the good, the bad, the ugly, and why you may want to consider moving there.
Hi everybody, I'm Carrie Fletcher, and this is
Drew Mims.
And this channel is all about living in Houston, Texas, the good, the bad, the ugly. If that's what you want to know more about, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell, that way you're notified every time we put out a new video. And look, whenever anybody you know are getting ready to move here to Houston, we'd love to help you. Give us a call, shoot us a text message, send us an email, any which way. We've got your back when moving to Houston. Let's get back into it. So one of the first things that we loved about it is the location. It's literally just north of downtown Houston. So you had these almost unreal panoramic views of sunsets.
Downtown
because the the buildings were right there in front of you, almost where you could reach out and touch them.
So downtown is actually to the east, so you would see the sun rise, but as you were coming home in the evening, the sunset would reflect off of the buildings. And so that's where this beautiful color would come from. And of course at night it's just all lit up, and we'll put a picture up here so you can see it, because it was just, downtown appeared so large from that perspective.
And so one of the other things about the location is its convenience. I mean, you could ride your bike into downtown, or you could...
Well, the hike and bike trail
the
literally
hike and
goes
bike
right
trail
through that neighborhood.
Right into downtown, or you were a short drive into downtown. But it's also intersected, the intersections of it, kind of this neighborhood we're talking about, has I-45 to the east, I-10 to the north, Sawyer Street to the west, and then we're going to call it Washington Avenue or Memorial.
Well, it's Washington Avenue is the historical boundary line for First Ward, but for today's purposes, we're going to stretch that over to Memorial.
Memorial to the south.
Which Memorial, you can just hop on Memorial and take it straight into the Galleria.
Well, you're kind of cutting me off there, because I was going to say, that's what's so great about it is on that location is it's so easy to get anywhere. You can hop onto I-45, you can hop onto I-10.
That's true.
You can bypass I-10 and jump right onto Memorial, which parallels it, and it's just everywhere you go, it's super convenient.
It is. And of course, I-10 will take you straight out to the energy corridor. So, and even if you needed to get out to the Woodlands and do, like, if you were working at Exxon and we're doing a reverse commute, you could hop on 45 right there. So super easy commute. Okay, so the Arts District Houston is probably one of Houston's most invaluable treasures. And I'm not sure, I think there are a lot of people that don't even realize that it's there, or when they move here, you know. So if you're into art and that's your thing, stick around, because this video is for you. So it really enriches the culture of Houston via art galleries, art installations. You've got creative studios. Did I say galleries? You've got shops, restaurants, you know, there's just so much going on there. It's pretty amazing.
Right. And you don't even have to, I'm not an artist, I'm not that into art, but so you don't have to be into art to really love this part of town.
So it's anchored by Sawyer Yards, which is, I think it's actually the largest creative community in the nation, or one of the largest. It's got over 55 acres, so it's really big. So something important to know is that the Arts District is right in the First Ward, which has two major railroad tracks running through it, and they're very active.
Yes, and so that is one of the major inconveniences.
So usually we wouldn't put two negatives right at the start of a video, but in the spirit of keeping this very real, we want to just make sure that you guys know that there are two major, very active railroads that run parallel to each other, right in the heart of the First Ward / Arts District. Eventually, we got used to it. We lived super close to the tracks. Well, we were a block or two away. But you know, there's supposed to be a no-blow zone in the middle of the night. That they don't follow those rules. So that's really something to know and consider, because they'll blow their horns at 3 o'clock in the morning and wake you up. Eventually you get used to it, and we would sleep through it. But in the beginning, it was pretty annoying. But
one of the keys to the development of First Ward Arts District is the reason that there's all these warehouses is because of the rail yards. That used to be sort of the warehouse district. If you used to Austin, you know, that warehouse district around 6th Street, same sort of concept, right? That's where all those warehouses were. And that's where now all those warehouses that used to have rice or whatever have been converted over into art studios, restaurants, galleries, breweries. And we're going to get into some of the specifics.
Yeah, and they hold all kinds of cool special events and shows. And so, yeah. So now we're going to list like the fun part. Talk about something fun and positive, or all the things that you can do. So the nice thing about living there is that you literally, it's very walkable. And on the weekends, or even any weekday or weeknight for that matter. And I think something I even forgot to put on the list was the aerial there's the aerial studio.
Oh, yeah.
So if you like to do, I'll just go ahead and start with that since I forgot to put it on the list.
Okay.
There's an aerial studio. So if you like to get on the stilts, and we have a good friend whose daughter is very into that, and that's the studio that they go to.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I don't even know if there are other studios. Do you in town?
I'm sorry, I'm not up on the aerial dance studio.
I just had an image of you.
Aerial dance
I just had an image of you up on
in
the
town.
right down the street from where we used to live was Momentum Indoor Rock Climbing. So it's massive. So if you like to do any kind of indoor rock climbing, it's right there, and you can go any day of the week. All right. So another cool place is Urban Axes.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you look like you would hang out.
That's mine,
Yeah,
right? Throwing
like
the
you would.
axes.
You guys heard of these places where you go and
you drink beer and you throw deadly
axes, which
weapons
sounds
at the
like a
wall.
really bad combination, but
one of
it's a thing.
One of my favorites, and I forget the name of it, but it's that golf place where you can go in. If you can imagine, it's like top golf with indoors.
So yeah, that's called Loft 18, and it's like a sports bar where you can play golf.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say? It was like an indoor
Top golf. It's an indoor top golf.
Except it's not affiliated with Top Golf. I don't.
No,
think.
it's not. No, not at all.
So you've got cycle bar. So if you like to take spin classes, you can go do that. They've got yoga, Pilates. There's even an Orange Theory. There's a jewelry instructor's like bead party thing that you can do. So I think she's a jewelry designer, but she does these parties. So that would be a really different thing to do. Like instead of going to a painting party, which I think they have those too, but not like Pinot's Palette where you're just all painting the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
This is a much more creative environment.
Right.
Not only can you do cycling, yoga, Pilates, but you can also, there's Love Dance Houston. So if dancing is how you like to get your exercise on, you can go do that, which is pretty cool. I've been actually wanting to go try that out. There's also something, and I don't know if this is unique to Houston. I'm sure they have this other places, but have you ever heard of a pedal party?
Oh, I love it.
We see them all around.
I see them all around.
So we'll put a picture up on the screen so you can see it. But I think that like you can have 10 people. There's a person that's the bartender in the middle, and I don't think they have to pedal. And then everybody else is pedaling, and you just
cruise around town. Cruise up and down Washington Avenue.
Drinking. It's I've never done it. I have friends that have done it, but
yeah.
All right, so there's even the Station Theater, which is live improv comedy, like sketch comedy. So that's pretty cool.
Okay.
So if you like beer.
So wait a second. You've talked about Pilates and dancing and cycles and all this exercise stuff. For me,
where are you going to go afterwards?
Yeah, for me, some of the funnest things is all the breweries and the ice houses and all the cool places to kind of hang out and get some really good beer.
Yeah, there's a new ice house. I forget the name of it. It took, I don't know, it was sat there for like 3 years.
I think it's actually Sawyer Yard's ice house, if I remember.
Is it?
I think it is. I'm sure it'll, whenever we pop in the video.
And they do really cool things. Like one of the breweries used to have I don't know if they still do it, but a movie night where you'd go outside and they showed the movie up on this big wall.
That's the Buffalo Bayou Brewery.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So you've got, I'm going to read from the list just because I don't have them all memorized, but.
And there's so many of them.
Right. So we know about the Holler. There's the Holler Brewery.
The Buffalo Bayou.
Buffalo Bayou.
Something Platypus.
Yeah, Platypus Brewery.
Platypus Brewery.
And then Urban South HTX Brewery. Yeah. It's all very hip.
Yeah.
Hip names. Then you got a ton of restaurants. So one of our favorites is B&B Butchers, which...
It's like, ooh, it's good.
It's very good. They also own another concept, which is right across the street called BB Lemon, and we really enjoy both.
Which is right next to one of my favorites, Gus's Fried Chicken. It's like a hot Tennessee fried chicken place. Oh, it's good. The sides.
And you've got like there's sushi, there's tacos, there's pretty much, there's all kinds of restaurants.
Well, wait a second. We used to live right around the corner from Stanton's, which is voted.
It's one of the oldest.
Year in and year out, the best burger in all of Houston.
and they have very limited hours. So if you want to go to Stanton's and give it a try, be sure to look up the hours.
How many times would we be coming home and it would be like, oh, we're going to have Stanton's tonight?
Like a lot of people go there after church on Sunday, but they close down kind of in the afternoon, and then they're done. So other things, we've talked about the fact that there's art galleries, there's art classes. You've got all kinds of shops too. And there's even a pretty high-end bridal shop that's pretty cool. There's a nail place, I think, called Polish.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on. I know. For the longest time, my whole family thought that I was crazy. For some reason, I didn't understand it was a nail salon, and I was like, or maybe I did.
Polish.
What is this Polish
What is
place?
this? What is a Polish nails?
And somebody finally told me.
It's polish.
So one of the really neat things that we enjoyed about living in the Arts District is that on the second Saturday of every month, they have two big events that go on kind of coincide,
Yeah.
go on parallel,
They
coincide together. The first one it's second Saturday, so all of the galleries and studios open up. It's a free event. You can go and just spend the whole afternoon. I think it's 12 to 5. And you can just go through all these warehouses that they've repurposed and meet the artists and look in their studios. And, you might even want to buy some art or some jewelry. But they've got like textiles, printmaking, paintings, drawings, mixed media, all kinds of.
Any kind of visual art representation you can imagine.
Yeah. So that's a really fun thing to do, to go with a friend or, your husband or, somebody that you like.
Somebody that you like. Well, one of the neat aspects, and you you said it, but I'm just going to reemphasize it. This is one of the few chances where you can see the art, meet the artist, get an understanding of what drove them, what motivated them, and really have a better personal connection with the actual artwork.
Yeah, I love that aspect of it. And then they also have the Saturday market, and they call it the market at Sawyer Yards, and that's actually right over in the parking lot by where the Loft 18, the golf sports bar thing is, and that's really, really cool because you have the artisans there, whether it's jewelry, art, even down to the food that they sell, right? Like their, artisan breads and things like that. So that's a really cool thing to do every second Saturday. And the market's actually open from 11 to 5. So it opens like an hour before the studios open. They also have just various art shows that are kind of ongoing, that you can go see during the rest of the month. So now we've talked about all the like hip, cool stuff that goes on in the Arts District. Now I want to talk a little bit about the history because I think it's important to visit because, we opened the video telling you that it's a transitional neighborhood. It is indeed an historical neighborhood.
So to get a real understanding of the flavor of the neighborhood, you really need to understand the history. So back in 1840, Houston was divided into 4 wards originally, and somewhere in the late 1860s that expanded out into 6 wards. But Houston's first ward, which is what we're talking about here, really was originally a bunch of farms, and it was farms because of the springs that were in the neighborhood. But then as the railroad came in and as the port expanded after the hurricane that devastated Galveston in 1900, and Houston became a large port town. Well, Houston's first ward became just that. It became a working class neighborhood where grocers, workers, railroad workers, and warehouse employees all lived because you didn't have cars. You couldn't walk around. Everybody walked to work. Well, fast forward, after cars and highways and everything came along, many of the original houses were either boarded up or abandoned, and some of the warehouses were torn down. So it really kind of went into the state of disrepair for a number of years.
You still had some people living there?
Still had some people living there.
But it just wasn't a very nice neighborhood.
It was in a state of decline, so let's fast forward. Now, as it starts to transition back, you have this historical section of this historical part of town that for decades just remained relatively unchanged. So there's a lot of historical homes, historical sections of the neighborhood that really give you a glimpse back into the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Which I love the history of it.
Yeah. And so that's it, between the warehouses and those older homes mixed in with some of the new, more modern homes. It really gives it a great atmosphere, if you will.
Yeah. So it was like, I think about 2000, like in the 2010s.
Mm-hmm. It was in the early 2000s.
You had it. So in the early, like 2010, around 2010, you had some citizens that really started focusing on revitalizing the neighborhood, and like just restoring some of these old houses, and getting in some businesses and getting the economic development going.
One of the things that I love about this neighborhood, I forget the name of the builder, but they've dedicated their whole business model around making, what do you call it, timepieces or pieces. They make homes that look just like the older homes, but they're
bungalows.
The old bungalows, but they're brand new homes in this neighborhood. And that's one of the few neighborhoods here in Houston where you'll see that, where you see new builders building homes.
Yeah, they also do that in the Heights, which is right next door, so it makes sense.
So it makes sense.
So one of the things we haven't mentioned yet is the old Jefferson Davis Hospital.
Yeah.
So there are lots of like funky stories around that. So there's this old hospital, which right across the street now is Ecclesia, which is a church. And they're both kind of right across from the Amtrak.
Yeah,
I think
that's what I was going to mention. It's just right across the street from the Amtrak station.
And it's super close to kind of the lower part of where 45. It's super close to where the freeways are kind of all, and that's kind of wooded just beyond there. But there's a lot of folklore about ghosts and that kind of thing in the old hospital.
Well, it used to be an old cemetery. That used to be the first, that ground right there used to be the first City of Houston cemetery.
That's right. I totally forgot about that. And then they put the hospital.
Then they built the hospital on top of it.
Now they've turned it into artist loft. So like I think it's working artists. I think they live there.
Right.
So they can live and work.
And when we lived in that neighborhood, we went to that church, Ecclesia, and it was a few times. And it was, that church was in what used to be an old paper, not a paper mill, but a paper warehouse, a paper company location, and they converted it into a church.
Next thing we want to talk about is just outdoor activities. There's, we mentioned before, I think that the hike and bike trail goes through. You've got lots of little pocket parks. And then of course you're right, you're close to the bayou where you can go, and you can enter the whole trails by the bayou right there in the neighborhood, which is super convenient. In fact, during COVID, that's what we would get out every day and go walk along the bayou there. So the hike and bike trail actually goes all the way from the Heights down through the First Ward all the way to downtown, and then like close to Buffalo Bayou Park.
Mm-hmm. So you ran some numbers on real estate and what it's like to buy a home there.
So now we're going to talk about, is it affordable? What's it like? First, you've got, we've hit upon this a little bit, but you've got a mix of older bungalows that have either been remodeled or not, like on the block that we lived in. And some, and you also have to be careful because the neighborhood actually slopes down towards the bayou. So if you're on the east side of the neighborhood, you need to be very careful because a whole section of that end flooded. Not where we were, but like a block away or 2 blocks away was totally underwater. And they're building some really cool houses, which we can put a picture
I
of.
love those houses.
But they're definitely engineered knowing that area floods, and I think that they jump through a lot of engineering hoops to make that happen.
They look like tree houses. We'll show you the pictures, but
it's very cool. So, but you've got the old bungalows, and then you've got builders coming in, building a lot of, single family freestanding townhomes, or townhome style. They're single family, but then you also have a lot of townhomes that are connected. So you've got a lot of new construction that's going in, mixed in with some remodeled, and then some of the houses that they've built, to look like the older bungalows. All right, so I pulled some numbers just to like give you an idea of what's available. So you can get a townhome and they range from like $385,000 if you were to go in today for what's actively on the market, on up to about $600,000. So that's for an attached townhome. And so the 385 example is 2,000 square feet on a 2,000, like a 20, almost 2,200 square foot lot. It was built in the year 2000. So a little bit, you know, about 23 years, 23 years old. And then the $600,000 would get you, you know, a little over 3,000 square feet on an 1,800 square foot lot, and that's for a place built in 2011, so a little bit newer. The single family homes range from about 415,000 on up to.
Can I stop you there for a second or interject? One of the neat things about the townhomes, or if you will, the single family homes that are designed like townhomes, there's a couple of features that you really want to look for. In that neighborhood, if you have views of downtown, if you have these downtown views, so you'll have outdoor space on the top floor. And then also what's critical in that section.
It's like a rooftop deck.
Yeah, it's like a rooftop deck, thank you.
It's very popular in that neighborhood.
Very popular because of
Downtown
downtown views and the fireworks and everything else. But then also, if you can get one with straight-in parking, where you can park in your garage and straight in, rather than having to go into a neighborhood area.
Well, a shared
driveway.
A shared driveway is really what he's talking about.
Yep.
And you know, one of the things is a lot of Texans, like Carrie drives a truck, and you know that's a big deal, right? You've got another good reason to have a good realtor. We measure a lot of garages for people, you know, because
we do.
You know, in that neighborhood, you might not want to park your car on the street. You know, you're likely going to want to have it in the garage, and that's really all of Houston, right? Anytime you're going to live in town, you know, you're going to need to like be aware of things like that. Okay, so back to single family homes.
Yep.
So, and like they range, like the lowest one right now on the market is 415,000, and that's for like just under 1,300 square foot house on a 5,000 square foot lot. So you've got a substantial lot. That's a pretty average lot size, and that's for an old bungalow built in 1930.
Yeah. Go on.
On up to $1,025,000. Now that's for a like 3,100 square foot house on a 5,490 square foot lot, and that was built in 2013. So that should give you a glimpse of what the real estate is like. And if you're interested in seeing more, give us a call. We're happy to show you what's on the market. We're happy to talk about more desirable sections of First Ward or the Arts District. Just give us a buzz. We're happy to help. All right, so the last thing that we're going to talk about today is shopping, because we want to be able to know if you can, you know.
Life's not all about breweries and axe throwing.
Well, for some people. So you've got a big Target, which is actually the Target for that whole kind of Heights general section. Area. And so you've got a nice big, I think it's a Super Target because there's a whole grocery store there.
Super Target.
You've got, is it Staples or Office Depot? Staples, it's one of the two. You've got like a whole strip center around that Target, like in fact two, with restaurants and nail salons. You've got a big PetSmart. So you've got Chick-fil-A. And then right on the other side of that, it's now connected. You've got Kroger, you've got Total Wine and More, Ulta. They just opened a brand spanking new Home Depot.
Well, everything except for Kroger in that you mentioned are brand spanking new. It's all part of that same development. They were all built just within this last year.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So you don't have to go far to go shopping. And in fact, the hike and bike trail goes right through. So if you wanted to ride your bike up to Target or Kroger or Total Wine and More, it might be kind of hard to carry your wine home on your bike.
Carry your lumber home on your backpack.
So we really loved the 2.5 years that we lived in the Arts District. We really want to encourage you, if you're moving here from another city and you love the arts, or you just like to be in a neighborhood where there's lots of happening, but it still feels kind of small town and you've got good outdoor spaces, this is the neighborhood for you.
Well, hey everybody, we have had so much fun doing this video. Appreciate you guys sticking around. Please leave us some comments down in the comment section. Let us know if you have any questions. Give us some feedback. If you've stuck around this long, give us that thumbs up. And we look forward to seeing you next time.